The message appeared for only a moment, yet it sent a shockwave through millions. "My kid LOL." It came just hours after Cardi B welcomed her baby boy with Stefon Diggs, and the world froze as Offset, her ex-husband, pressed send, igniting a firestorm he could not control. In an instant, questions exploded across the internet, twisting through timelines and comment sections as people demanded answers about what he meant, why he deleted it, and whether he was hinting at a truth no one was prepared for. Cardi fired back with raw emotion, Offset pulled away in silence, and Diggs remained a mystery in the background as the pressure mounted with every passing second. Rumors of paternity swirled into chaos, legal whispers from Georgia complicated the story, and cryptic song lyrics only deepened the sense that something darker was unfolding beneath the surface. Nothing about this moment was accidental, and nothing about the fallout was simple, because this wasn't just a post, it was a spark to a hidden war. And today, we dig into every shadow surrounding that 6-letter message, the reaction that shook 3 lives, and the truth buried beneath the noise. If you're new, subscribe, because what you're about to witness changes everything you thought you knew. Their marriage had been a storm long before the world realized it, shaped by moments of passion that quickly turned into loud arguments and public fallouts that left both of them exhausted and distant. They would split, reconcile, announce love again, and then repeat the same cycle until even fans could feel the weight of a bond stretched too far for too long. By the time they walked apart for the final time, the silence between them spoke louder than any headline ever could, signaling that something had broken beyond repair. When Cardi eventually filed for divorce, many believed it would be quick, clean, and final, but instead it became a process trapped in place as months passed without progress. Georgia law complicated everything, because the state still considered Offset the legal father of any child born before the divorce was complete, even if he and Cardi were no longer together. This created a heavy emotional burden on Cardi, who felt stuck in a system that kept pulling her backward while she was trying to move forward with her life. Away from the chaos, a new chapter slowly started forming when Cardi B and Stefon Diggs were first seen together, sparking whispers that grew into a louder conversation as the two stepped carefully into the public eye. Diggs carried a reputation for being private and controlled, a stark contrast to Offset's more explosive nature, and this difference brought curiosity about what Cardi might be seeking. Their relationship developed in small, steady moments that began to show the world a calmer version of Cardi that people had not seen in a long time. Rumors about Cardi's pregnancy began with small online hints that grew into bigger conversations as her appearance changed and fans pieced together clues. Offset's quick comment of "not mine" on TikTok was his way of shutting down speculation, while Cardi responded in her own tone, defending her piece without naming names. That short exchange revealed how much tension had been building quietly in the background long before the baby's birth became public knowledge. Everything in their lives seemed to be moving toward a point that none of them could avoid, shaped by the weight of their past and the uncertainty of the future. The world watched from the outside, unaware of how tangled the emotions, the laws, and the relationships had truly become behind the scenes. But nothing prepared anyone for the reaction that came when the newborn finally arrived, because what Offset did next changed the tone of this story completely. News of the baby's birth spread quickly, creating a wave of excitement around Cardi B and Stefon Diggs as the world celebrated a fresh beginning for them after months of quiet anticipation. Cardi's close circle shared how relieved she felt to finally close a painful chapter and start a calmer one with someone who brought steadiness into her life. But beneath the joyful messages online, a shadow of tension lingered from the unfinished past she believed she had already left behind. Just hours after the announcement, Offset posted the message that shifted the entire atmosphere when he typed, "My kid LOL," a short phrase that carried far more weight than its playful tone suggested. Fans captured the message instantly, spreading it across social platforms before he deleted it, making that single moment impossible to erase. The internet began tearing apart those 3 words, questioning whether it was sarcasm, jealousy, a claim, or the beginning of something more serious connected to the complex divorce issues that had not been resolved. Cardi noticed the chaos almost immediately and responded in her own way, expressing her exhaustion with the constant pressure and the feeling of being dragged back into drama she no longer wanted to live in. Her posts showed a woman who felt cornered and tired of defending her peace while stepping into motherhood again with someone new. Every sentence she wrote hinted at deeper wounds that had not healed, even though she was trying to move beyond them. Offset added more fuel when he released music that many listeners believed contained clear jabs at Cardi and Diggs, turning private emotions into public lyrics that sparked more speculation. The line comparing himself to Jordan and Diggs to Rodman made people believe he was expressing anger, pride, or a mix of both in a way that was easier for him than speaking directly. Critics and bloggers broke down the lyrics with their own interpretations, each one adding new layers to the tension already spreading between the former couple. Meanwhile, legal experts online explained how the unfinalized divorce created a confusing foundation that might have influenced Offset's behavior, especially knowing that the law could complicate the child's legal status. Rumors grew about disagreements over assets and accusations that the stalled divorce was intentional, deepening the public's curiosity about what was truly happening behind closed doors. This uncertainty made every action feel heavier, as though the emotional conflict was being shaped by legal consequences neither side wanted to face. Through all this, Stefon Diggs remained silent, choosing not to comment or engage no matter how loud the noise around him became. His quiet presence only intensified the speculation, with people wondering what he thought of the situation and why he refused to respond. And as the tension continued to rise, the world sensed that a turning point was coming, one that would push this conflict from quiet frustration into undeniable confrontation. The turning point arrived when Cardi B went live in an audio space and finally spoke without filters, letting the world hear the strain she had been carrying throughout the pregnancy and the chaos that followed the birth. Her voice carried a mixture of fear and exhaustion as she admitted she felt overwhelmed by the constant pressure of public judgment and private conflict. She described how the harassment had pushed her into a place where she feared the next headline more than the argument that caused it, and that confession showed a woman trapped between survival and silence. As her words spread online, the internet split into groups that turned the situation into a virtual battleground, with supporters of each person creating their own arguments, theories, and emotional explanations. Some fans believed Offset had deeper intentions, others believed Cardi was unfairly targeted, and many insisted Diggs was dragged into a mess that never belonged to him. Commentators began dissecting the relationships, timelines, and legal details, and it created an environment where every new rumor felt like evidence and every silence felt like guilt. The phrase, "my kid LOL," became the center of endless debates as people searched for meaning far beyond its short and casual tone, wondering if Offset was expressing hurt, sarcasm, entitlement, or a quiet attempt to claim something legally. Some said he was joking, others felt it was a bitter response to seeing Cardi move on, and a third group insisted it was tied to the complicated laws that still connected them as spouses. Even experts weighed in, offering insights into how impulsive posting can reveal hidden emotional wounds or unresolved attachments that erupt in unexpected ways. Offset's music added even more fuel because listeners treated the lyrics like confessions, believing each line was a clue to his true feelings about the breakup and the new baby. The comparison between Jordan and Rodman triggered debates about pride, ego, and whether he still felt ownership over a chapter Cardi had already closed. Music bloggers argued that artists often reveal the truths they struggle to say publicly, and this made people treat the song as a window into a deeper emotional war. As the arguments grew, the public began to see that this was no longer a celebrity disagreement but a collision of identity, reputation, and unresolved emotions tied to legal uncertainty. The tension became overwhelming because everyone realized a newborn child was now at the center of adult pain, narrative battles, and public expectations. And when the dust settled, the world understood that this conflict had crossed from private heartbreak into a public storm that none of them could fully control. Cardi stepped into this new chapter with a calm determination that felt different from the fire she showed in earlier conflicts, choosing instead to anchor her life around the newborn and the peaceful home she wanted to protect. She made it clear that Diggs was her support system by setting boundaries that kept the chaos outside, refusing to let the noise around Offset's reactions disrupt the environment she was building. Even in her rare public comments, she spoke with a steady tone that suggested she was done defending herself and ready to move forward without apology or hesitation. Offset's behavior shifted noticeably after the backlash because the intensity of the internet's reaction seemed to quiet the anger that had driven his earlier posts and music. His next appearances showed a man trying to regain control of his image, offering smiles where there had once been tension and avoiding the topics that had created the storm. Fans noticed the difference instantly and debated whether it came from regret, exhaustion, or simply recognizing that the situation had spun far beyond his intentions. Diggs remained the quiet center of stability as the drama settled, maintaining his usual distance from emotional headlines and focusing on his career in a way that showed discipline and calm. People began to appreciate how his refusal to respond prevented more escalation, because every silence from him softened the fire that had surrounded the birth. His presence offered a contrast that grounded the situation, showing how steady energy can influence even the loudest public narrative. The legal outcome continued to move slowly because the unresolved divorce was tied to laws that demanded patience, DNA clarity, and negotiations far more complicated than fans understood. Cardi insisted publicly that she would not accept the financial demands being placed on her, making it clear she would rather take her time than sign anything that felt unfair or controlling. Discussions about paternity became less heated as people realized that legal procedures would provide answers without online theories shaping the truth. Emotionally, everyone involved felt the weight of what had happened because the public conflict had exposed hidden fears, old wounds, and unresolved attachments that still shaped their behavior long after the headlines faded. Cardi carried exhaustion but also a renewed sense of direction. Offset seemed to hold a mixture of confusion and sadness, and Diggs continued to move with calm responsibility. The children connected to this story experienced the ripple effects quietly, reminding the world that public drama always has private consequences that last far longer than online debates. In the end, the reactions, the anger, the silence, and the music revealed something deeper than gossip. A family reorganizing itself after heartbreak, learning to rebuild boundaries, and facing the emotional debts left behind by a chapter that none of them ever expected to relive. As this story reaches its final moments, the questions left behind feel heavier than the drama that created them, and they linger because every action and reaction in this conflict carried layers that were never fully explained. Viewers are left wondering whether Offset's words were a genuine expression of pain or a message shaped by tension, pride, and the unresolved legal ties that still bind him to Cardi. The uncertainty forces everyone to reconsider what that short sentence truly meant and whether it was a spontaneous reaction or a deliberate gesture that carried consequences far beyond the post itself. Another question rests on how much the ongoing legal process influenced the emotions at play, because the unfinished divorce created a situation where clarity became difficult and assumptions filled the gaps. The audience must decide whether Offset's involvement was driven by concern, legal pressure, or emotional confusion, and this uncertainty turns the situation into something more complex than a simple social media misunderstanding. It raises the possibility that timing, circumstances, and unresolved history shaped the reaction as much as personal feelings did. Cardi's choice to respond in the way she did also becomes a point worth examining, because her decision to speak publicly came from a place of exhaustion but also from the need to defend her peace in a moment of vulnerability. Some may believe she needed to address the speculation, while others might argue that silence would have softened the chaos instead of adding to it. The viewer must decide whether her response brought clarity or whether it added one more emotional layer to an already tangled situation. Diggs' silence stands as one of the most intriguing elements, because refusing to answer became its own form of communication, leaving room for interpretation while avoiding the battle entirely. That silence can be seen as strength, caution, or simply a desire to protect his private life from becoming a stage for public conflict. His presence in this story invites the audience to consider how much restraint can influence a narrative when others choose to speak. Now the story sits in the hands of those watching, inviting personal theories, emotional reactions, and interpretations shaped by everything revealed. The viewer is asked to look at these figures not as headlines but as people navigating a complicated moment that unfolded faster than anyone could control. And as this chapter closes, the truth becomes clear: this situation is not finished, and each decision made from here will determine how the story continues to unfold. If you connected with this deep exploration, you are invited to share your thoughts, join the discussion, and add your perspective to the questions left unanswered. Subscribing ensures that you remain part of this unfolding journey as new chapters form and more details come to light. What comes next may reshape everything once again, and your voice will be part of the conversation that follows.